Okay, so if you have successfully downloaded the EOS assignment-student format.xls from Blackboard, this is what you should see. I'm using an older version, I think the 2008 version of Excel for Mac. But if you open up this XLS file in any version of Excel, or really anything that will open .xls, I think OpenOffice opens it as well if you don't have Microsoft Office installed on your computer. Either way, this is what you'll see, where we have different sheets down here. We have main precipitation values, main minimum air temperature values, max air temp values, and solar radiation. And then we have this sort of master sheet with main-CA data, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So what you want to do, we'll start with precipitation, and I'll show you how to do what we need to do for precipitation, and you'll just repeat this process for minimum air temp, max air temp, and solar radiation amplitudes. And so basically what we need to do is average the entire values for a given year, and what that will do is give us the average state of Maine value, okay? Because these latitude and longitudes are from stations set up all over the state, so if we average them, we'll get kind of a overall average of the entire state as opposed to just one area of the state. So if you're not familiar with Excel, then you'll want to pay particularly close attention to this next step. If you are familiar with Excel, this may be repeat. But either way, what we need to do, because we want to average these values for the year 2000, is in this field below all the values, you can double click, make an equal sign, type average, so average, open the parentheses, use your cursor to go up and select the values from 982 all the way down to 1061. And so what this does is you see that you're making an average of the values from 982 all the way down to 1061. Close your parentheses and hit enter, and this is now the average value for the year 2000 for all over the state for precipitation. So if you highlight that field, and you either press, if you're on a Mac, you can press Command C. You can also right click on this and select. Either way, we need to hit copy. We want to copy this cell, and here and all the rest of the ways to the right, we want to paste the cell. So if you're on a Mac, you can hit Control V. You could also right click on the field and hit paste. Either way, what we want to do is copy this, and then we want to highlight all of these fields, scrolling all the way. If you keep your mouse clicked down, you can highlight all the way over, and we want to run this all the way to the right to the year 2100. So you have all the fields highlighted, you can right click on them and hit paste. So what that's done is taken this formula that we made in the first one of taking the average of that entire column, and it's projected it over. And so if you look here, it's now doing the average of all of these. If you go, all the way over to, say, the year 2094, if you look at that, you double click on it, it'll show you that, again, that formula has just been copied over for that column. So we now have average precipitation values for each year from 2000 to 2100 for the state of Maine. So now what you should do is, see how I have this black arrow that shows up pointing to the right when I move it over the number of row 47? If you click on the number 47, it'll highlight everything to the right of that. So it'll highlight this entire row. Right click on the highlighted row and hit copy. Okay? So what that's going to do is copy the entire row. Now what we want to do is click over to go to this main-CA data sheet. Okay? We're looking at main precipitation, and you see all the years are already there. So what you want to do is highlight the 3, and then go to Edit at the top and click Paste Special. This window for Paste Special will come up, and what we want to do is just paste the values. Okay, if you just hit Control V, or if you just hit Edit Paste, what it would actually do is copy the formulas into this new sheet, but we don't want that. We want just the values. And so if you select Edit, Paste Special, and then Values, and you hit OK, it will paste the values directly into each field for you. So you'll notice that we have projected precipitation values now for Maine and for California. So when you open this sheet, I've created this chart for you already, okay? And the main precipitation values, which is blue currently, won't show up in this chart until you paste them into this row up here under main precipitation. These are the graphs that we want you to, or the same style of graphs that we want you to create for each other data set. So for solar radiation, max air temperature, minimum air temperature, we want you to create this. With each graph, what we want you to do is make sure that there's a chart title, you have your axes labeled, and also you know what each data series indicates. So to put a chart title on, you select your title and you go over here to the toolbox. If it's not showing up, you can hit toolbox and it will pop up for you. Under chart options, you hit titles and then chart title comes up. So we're looking at projected precipitation for Maine, and we want to put your initials here so we know that the graph is yours and you made it. So in my case, I'm going to put JP. To put a label on the horizontal x-axis, remember we're doing years on the x-axis, all you do is type years, or in this case year. For the vertical axis, or the y-axis, the values are in millimeters, remember? And we looked at that in the first chart with the data, but I also have it here for you in row 5, column A, of precipitation given in millimeters per year. So we have millimeters, we have on the y-axis, we have year, on the x-axis, we're good to go. And so that's all you have to do for the first graph. Okay? And so now you want to do the same thing for minimum air temperature. Luckily there's a quick trick that you can do. Because there are the same number of stations set up in the same years, we can go over to precipitation values. We can highlight row 47 here. We can copy it or hit Command C or Edit Copy, whichever you prefer. Now if you go over here, select row 45, and instead of hitting Edit and Paste Special, which we did on the master sheet to get the values, instead we want the formulas. So if you go to Edit and just hit Paste, it's going to copy all of the formulas over, and so what it's doing now is it knows to take the average of all those values. And so that just saved us some time. Keep in mind that this had been updated because we pasted it, but it's not precipitation that we're dealing with. We're dealing with minimum temperature now. So with these, we didn't paste in the values, we just pasted in the formulas. So as you can see, it's taking the average of the columns, and just because everything lined up in terms of same number of rows, and we have same number of stations going for each data set, you can paste in the formulas and it works great. So once you have that, you can highlight the row, you can right click on it and hit copy, or whichever copy method you prefer. We're going to go back to the main sheet here, the ME-CA data sheet. Remember we're dealing with Maine minimum temperature, okay? So we have Maine minimum air temperature here. I'm going to highlight row 18, going to go to Edit, Paste Special. And remember we're going to do values because we don't want the formulas this time, we just want the values. So you hit OK, and there it's pasted. So now I'm going to show you how to make a graph for Maine minimum temperature to compare with California minimum air temperature. So just to keep things standard, I'll write CA instead of California. Alright, CA. So this is quite simple, although if you've never done it before, it's going to be a new and unique experience, but I promise that by the end of this activity, you should be good to go. So what you'll want to do is see the black arrow that's showing up under row 17. I'm going to highlight all three of these rows here. You'll notice that it's highlighting every year from 2000 over to 2100. It's highlighting the Maine values and also the California values. So we're going to hit charts up here, or instead you could go to you could go to insert chart. I'm just going to use this little toolbar right here. We're going to hit chart. Then you want to click XY scatter. Okay. and then you'll hit this middle one, the smooth line scatter. So when you click that, you can see what it's doing is the purple areas are the x-axis, which is true. In this case, the green areas are the two different data series, and then the blue areas are the y-axis for their respective data series. So that made it a pretty simple, just highlighting these three rows. Excel is pretty smart, and it knows which the values are and knows to make the chart. So alternatively, you could plot just Maine and then add a series to the chart and add California, but it's kind of, I think it's much easier and much faster if you just highlight all three rows, hit charts, XY scatter, and then smooth line scatter, because it will do it for you. So now this chart looks pretty different than the precipitation chart, right? So not only are the values different, but we're missing some major labels that we need. So we need to make a chart title. So under Chart Options in your toolbox, hit Chart Title and click here. So we're plotting projected minimum air temp for Maine and California. We're going to do hyphen and then your initials here. So I'm going to put hyphen JP. Remember, on the x-axis we have years. On the vertical axis, because we're charting temperature and because the values are given in degrees Celsius, we're just going to put DEGC as the vertical axis title. So that looks pretty good, except for now we need to, there are some weird labels showing up here. So 1980 is showing up under the years, 2120. We only have data for the year 2000 to 2100, so let's restrict the graph so it's just showing the years that we have data for. So if you click on the horizontal axis labels, right, so if you clicked out and you just click on the numbers once, this box will come up around the numbers. Right click on it to bring up this window and choose Format Axis. This Format Axis window will pop up, and what we want to do is go to Scale. Okay, and so what we want to do is to put the minimum year to be the year 2000 and the maximum to be 2100, and sometimes the minimum changes when you enter something into the maximum. If that happens, just go back and type in the year 2000 again. So now the minimum value that will show up is the year 2000, the maximum is the year 2100. That's great. So now hit OK. So now the graph is looking pretty good. We've got the proper years plotted there. There's no excess going on, but you'll notice that the x-axis labels is showing up at kind of a weird spot. Right, it's at the 0, which is normal for the other graph for precipitation, but because there are negative Maine air temperature values here, it's showing up with the horizontal axis label kind of in a weird spot. So to fix that, click on the y-axis labels, just tap once, right-click on it, and click Format Axis. We again click on Scale, but this time, instead of dealing with minimum and maximums, we're going to change the horizontal axis crosses at value. So if you make this value -2, and then hit OK, you'll see that the horizontal axis shifted down, and so it's no longer in the way of the values or of the y-axis labels. So it looks a lot cleaner, and I think that this is the only data set that you'll have to do that for, is minimum air temp. But always make sure that your graphs look very clean, professional, and well put together. So what you want to do is just copy this procedure for the other 4 variables, or in this case the other 2, max air temp and solar radiation values. Please remember that you need to put your initials in the chart title, you need to have a chart title, and you need to have a label for the X and Y axis.